exactly, so I have my opinion too. But when I'm sitting at this table, my opinion doesn't count,
Why doesn't your opinion count?
because I represent the town. I represent people in the town and what's best for the town.
Right, but me having an opinion, and I'm also representing people in the town, but my opinion is not a conflict of interest, it's an opinion. So, how is that different from you having your opinion and also representing people?
So does the fact that my father has a gas lease
I
give me?
honestly don't think so, and
Okay.
you've never heard me say that before.
So I thank you for
But-
answering my question.
But this is about establishing a good code of ethics for the town for any day of the year, for any circumstance. And I think that the town of Vienna is the best code of ethics that we have in front of us, and I thought it was simple, but, I mean, this is not like an attack against you so that you can't vote for.
See, other
some
people
reason.
have told me that that's why they want the code of ethics adopted because of the gas, the moratorium. They don't think that I should vote because my father has a gas lease. That's been said to my face, so.
Okay, but,
So when I would,
so
I-
are you
when I
saying you'd
read
rather
this-
have the current one because you?
no, when I read this is very cumbersome, and I don't think we can, it's good for the town of Butternuts.
Okay.
It took me like an hour just to get through the first page and understand exactly what they're talking about. And if there is a board of ethics, whoever is on that board has to be able to understand what that law is saying too. And I don't think that that's there.
Well, there are ways, of course, of simplifying it, but we still need to have the meat and potatoes of the ethics to be there, more importantly, the ethics law.
And I think that that's there in
Should
the
this
state
be done?
is okay with the code that we have now if we add the board of ethics to it.
Well, in the three towns that you looked at, was there one where the establishment of the board you thought was easier to understand?
I didn't, I think that they all need to be tailored for the town of Butternuts. This one, Hamlin, has 5 members, which is good. I think an odd number is good to have. I think that they need to be staggered, and I don't know if that was. Yeah, the Hamlin's board, it does stagger, so somebody's going off it every year, so they rotate.
So, in order to move this forward, what if we table the choosing of an ethics law and work on finding wording that we will all like for adding an ethics board. And then I think that there are a lot of, that the current ethics board that we, not board, the current code of ethics that we have is a little, not
it is a lot different than the model code of ethics that the state has given us. It's a completely other thing, and that these three, the choices that the State Attorney General's office gave us are much closer to this New York State model. And that was something that I felt when the previous board made their decision to go with the Otigo model over the New York State model. I was disappointed, and I think that many people in the town also expressed their disappointment. The Otigo code, or our current code, is very short. I will say that I do like the whistleblower policy that it has, and I don't think these have that. But I think the other thing we could do is establish an ethics board, and they could make recommendations to us about about what a code of ethics.
I think it needs to come from the town board.
So, okay.
I understand where you're going with that, but I think it needs to come from.
I'm trying to work out a compromise.
I understand. But that's,
all we had 2 months that Charlie said that the state wanted a code of ethics as good as or stronger than the state's code. And then all of a sudden they say, well, this one we do have meets their standards, so is it as good as the state code?
Not in my opinion.
It has a little more meat in it. That was the word she used.
Ours does. It's as good
After
as
she
the-
looked at the whole thing with the 4 extra pages, originally, like I said at the last meeting, it was no good, looking at that top page. But when they looked at the other pages, they compared to Otigo, and then they realized there was a big difference, 1 page, and there were 5 pages. Well, what happened, is this all Otigo had? So she's trying to get them to request to send the whole thing. Maybe that's all they have, who knows? I don't think so, because we have theirs. All she said to me was, the 4 extra pages, add a little more meat to it. That would make it acceptable to them.
Which is,
But they still highly recommended, what was missing was the Board of Ethics, which the other 3 had.
definitely almost, it's a given,
Yeah.
but she's saying it's as good as the state code.
It meets what they're looking for. You know, doesn't exceed it, she didn't use that word. It didn't fall below because now it's acceptable. It's acceptable to what they're looking for. They're pulling them in from every town in the state of New York. Looking at the ones that are weak, the recommendation is to do something about it. And obviously the ones that are too strong, they probably don't care. I mean, I looked at all of them, and I never was a fan of the Otigo version. I wanted the state version, but then there were parts of it that never pertained to our town, which were there, which would never come into play, but because of their presence in it, it put the wrench in there that we don't want this one, and that's the way the vote went. And they went with the Otigo one, which I have always felt, that first page. And if the state's fine with it, I can't dispute them, but when you deal with laws like that, that governs the people, we are the people, that when it says you shall do something, and then they turn it and it says you should, well, should to me is maybe. So, in case of you shall not vote if you have that conflict. But the way the Otigo said, that first page, you should not vote. And that's like an open door, it's a maybe. And I don't think a maybe is proper in law. Any law book you read says shall and must. And I've looked at law books since that time, that's months ago, just to see how they're worded. Must and shall is in every line you read. You never see should. Or should is either way. You don't have to if you should, but if you shall, then you have to. And that's why I never liked that one, but it's the way it went, and that's what you live with. But this was an opportunity that the state took on to look at everybody's town, because I guess Governor Cuomo, he's very big on ethics. And he's doing that right there in Albany, creating ethics laws. And I guess he wants the towns to be a part of that, and that's where all of this is coming from. I personally looked at the three of them, and I read them one day, didn't read them for 3 days, read them again, just so I didn't read it too quickly. And I kind of leaned towards the Vienna one. I thought out of the three she sent me, that one I thought felt it suited the town. The wording, I agree, is a little crazy, how you word it. You know, when you were reading it there, it's more like a confusion. It's like talking to a lawyer. You know, they can talk and sometimes you don't even, you know, to follow them is very hard. But that's my 2 cents on it. I, after reading the three of them and never being a fan of the Otsego one, the Vienna one would have been my choice. And definitely a Board of Ethics. I think towns, look at Oneonta, the struggle they had when they had a Board of Ethics. They had to go out and hire a law firm and spend money to get an answer, you know, so I think the hardest hurdle to get over is the creation of the Board of Ethics. But as far as the law itself, it's worded differently than Otsego, but they both meet the same standard. Both are approved by the Attorney General. Any one of them three, with Otsego now, is approved by them. Anyone else want to have to say any comment on it? We'll decide what we're gonna do.
If the wording were changed in what we're calling the Otsego one, to say should instead of, wait, I'm sorry, to say shall instead of should,
It should say shall or must instead of should.
so if that were changed to that, would you be okay with?
Do you agree that that word is kinda improper in there? When you look at the word should as a maybe, and a must and a shall as a definite? And it's the first page that really is the part that the state didn't like, I never liked. We're changing that wording,
That's what I'm asking.
the impact on it, yeah, what impact would changing that wording? It satisfied me, that's what I wanna see, shall and must, I don't wanna see
So
should.
why don't we don't have to decide tonight, do we?
I think it's an easy change and it's definitely a start.
Do you like the shall and must over should?
I think I said this before, when I read that, it was like an introductory page. That wasn't the rules and regulations of the Code of Ethics. That was saying this is what the Code of Ethics is gonna do. And then going on into it is when they set the standards and say what you will do and what you won't do.
Mm-hmm.
That's what my feeling
Right.
was when I read it.
But
It wasn't that first page saying, this is what the Code of Ethics is. That was just like a preliminary.
right, and
to
that's
it.
what the lady told me when she said that when you get the first pages, when you go down to the other 4 pages, it puts a little more meat into it.
That's what answers all the questions from the
True.
first page.
Right, but I still think that even that introductory page,
They could have used other words, it wouldn't have
yeah,
changed
I
it.
mean, but you don't know if it ever came down to an issue, how that introductory page might play in. You know, sometimes you see things and say, oh, that's only an introduction, and then somehow, you know,
Well,
there's
it's
a
like,
challenge or
it's
something.
like the state, if you only read the first page, that was what you would see. You didn't read the whole thing.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people that looked at that Otigo one, really the first thing that popped out was that should. I know, that did to me right away, you know, it's just like, well, that's no good, you know, without reading the other 4 pages. So is any recommendations?
I'm gonna make a motion that we establish a 5-member board of ethics, rotational terms.
Second.
Okay, before we go, is there gonna, without any, this is on the Otigo version as it is?
This is just to specific
Okay.
towns to establish
Okay, but for the purpose of including that
we
into the,
can amend the Otigo Code of Ethics with this,
We should actually say our current.
our current Otigo Code of Ethics.
Yeah, it's currently called, you know, the Betternuts Code of Ethics.
The current Illinois Code of Ethics to
I-
include establishing a 5-member board.
I think that, in order to establish it, we should, have some language and, guidelines, so we should come up with some language which we're gonna use in order to establish it.
to establish the Board of Ethics?
So,
I agree with you, but I think that this is at least a start.
yes, and I think maybe we could start advertising, or however we're gonna establish this board, however we're gonna get applicants for the Board of Ethics. We could get started on that process. Maybe at the next meeting, we could then find language that we agreed on for establishing the board. Use that to help us in our decision-making process.
Okay, so the motion was made, it was second. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed?
It's going to take a lot of thought on how we're going to establish who will be on the board. I wonder, town of Oneonta has a board of ethics?
They do.
I wonder if we can ask them how they did it, or somebody else that has a board already established, how did they?
Well, that was the problem, Oneonta had one, and no one around them did. So they couldn't even go for outside help when it came to that vote they had.
Right,
Somehow their whole entire board recused themselves.
but they
Didn't wanna
had,
touch it.
Yeah,
they at least had a board established.
they do,
So
yes.
maybe we could get.
How they did that?
Yeah.
We can work on it, sure.
One of these, and I forget which one, the board has to be a resident of the town, and I think that that's a good thing.
Okay. I'll look into that. Okay, we're gonna privilege you the floor.